Amy, I have an itch and it is for a spicy dark romance and I need one bad.
I have the book for you. It is A Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorick. It was an instant New York Times bestseller. It was a huge indie hit on Book Talk, and I think it is right up your alley.
It seriously has some of my favorite tropes, like shifters, vampires, witches. You know how I feel about vampires. There can never be enough. It has the best morally gray characters, fated mates, meddling gods, forced proximity, touch her and die. One bed, one horse, he falls first, enemies with benefits.
I loved enemies with benefits. Don't tell me your feelings at all. Just ravage me, please.
I need to read this immediately.
I love that there's even LGBTQ rep. The series overall features romantic relationships like MFM polyamory, MM, and FM. Give it all to me.
You know how I love to feel devastated by reading a book? A Reign of Shadows and Endings is it.
And if you're like Jack and I and you love special editions, there is a gorgeous deluxe version with stenciled edges, foil details, and full color character arc from Kensington Publishing.
It is, in fact, in my heart currently.
We're so excited to read it, and you can too. You can find A Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Rorick wherever books are sold in print and in ebook.
You can also find Melissa online at her website, melissakRorick.com, at Melissa_K_Rorick on Instagram, and at author Melissa K. Rorick on TikTok. That's ROEHRIC.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Unlock over $3,500 in business and travel value annually with statement credits on select purchases from brands like Dell, Hilton, and Adobe, and other benefits. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Based on total potential value of statement credits on select purchases and other benefits, enrollments required, monthly and other limits and terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy, your besties with a literary podcast that deep dives into your favorite novels. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy.
Today, we're excited to interview Sarah A. Parker, author of When the Moon Hatched and the soon-to-be-published The Ballad of Falling Dragons.
Born in New Zealand, Sarah now lives on the Gold Coast with her husband and 3 young children. Sarah has been writing since she was small, but has only recently begun sharing her stories with the world.
Welcome to the podcast, Sarah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, it's an honor to be here. I cannot wait to have this chat with you guys. And yeah, just thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's such a privilege to talk to authors before the book comes out. This is the one instance we did not have the opportunity to read an advanced reader copy before the interview.
Yeah.
Totally okay. The scheduling just didn't work out.
Let me know if I can hook you up with one. Do you
Yes.
have?
Okay, she's shaking her head. Yes, please.
No,
She's saying no.
I've already arranged for it.
All right.
Oh,
fabulous.
yes. Yeah, we've never interviewed not knowing something, so
Oh, golly.
So this will be spoiler-free for the most part, which
Yeah.
is good.
Fabulous.
spoiler-free
Fabulous.
and just as much pain and angst as the listener is experiencing.
I'll do my very best not to spoil either of you with anything. So I
disagree
can't
with
wait
this
for you both
statement.
to read it, though.
Yeah.
I hope you love it. I hope you love it.
Well, we're so excited because one of, I think, the most amazing things about When the Moon Hatched was the elaborate world that you built, the world of Moonfall. Did I get that right? Is it named something
Yes.
else?
Well, it's the Moonfall series. Look, it works. It works.
Okay.
We'll roll
The
with it.
Moonfall series. I was Googling. I was like, is my brain not working? Hello? Okay,
Yeah.
we're good. Going from When the Moon Hatched to drafting, revising The Ballad of Falling Dragons, What was your process for reorienting yourself with all the complexities of the world that you've built? Or is it all just like in your head, easy to recall?
Look, I have been living in this world for years before I wrote When the Moon Hatched. So it is very much just like part of me. I feel like I'm walking around with this like massive world just sitting in my head constantly. So, but also bearing in mind too that When the Moon Hatched was originally just the first half of book one. So Ballad was originally that's the second half of the story. And I realized very early in the process that there was just no way, no way that that was going to fit in one book. So I split it quite early, and before I'd even actually done the proper draft. I'd just done the dialogue because I do that first. I go through and sketch out my dialogue first. So I'd just done that, and I was like, there is no way, because I get fluffier as I write. So I was like, nah. But bearing that in mind, I already had book two completely sketched out. So going into that was just like, it was like I was still sitting in the same pool. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't take time off. I went straight into it and got going. Believe it or not. I know that book two took me forever to write, but I did. I went straight into it and I didn't stop for 2 years. So it was very natural just moving through that. I was so looking forward to writing a lot of the scenes and like fleshing out a lot of the scenes in book two when I was writing book one, because again, like book two, it was the natural second half of that original first one plan. So I was working up to a lot of these scenes and a lot of these areas, and for us to be able to see these different parts of this world. So I got to tease them in book one, but then we actually got to go to a lot of these places in book two, which was so exciting for me. It's a short story. I never left that world, and I don't think I ever will.
Yeah, no, that makes so much sense. If I can ask a follow-up question.
Yeah.
I think world building is either a gift or other people's like biggest downfall when it comes to like writing, especially maybe for the first time. Do you have advice to maybe new fledgling authors about your process for fleshing out your world or how you went about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting thing, world building used to be my biggest weakness. It was something, when I first started writing.
You would never believe that. This is
would never have guessed.
One of the best world buildings that has worlded.
I'm a big fan of looking my biggest weaknesses in the eye and going, you know what, I'm going to master you. I'm going to work towards mastering you. So I became aware of that when I first started just writing, honestly, stuff that hasn't even sort of made it to print. But when I first started working on my own stories and, started writing, I was like, okay, look, I've got the emotional stuff down packed. That's always been my biggest strength, but my world building, it just was not there. So I got to trying to sharpen that blade. And one of the biggest things that I did with Moon, because I actually did try to write it a couple of times prior to when I did write that third and final draft, and I scrapped both of those drafts. It wasn't working. I wasn't getting there. I think my pen wasn't quite sharp enough to be able to do the world justice yet. But when I did sit down that third and final time, the first thing I did was spent a month getting the entire world out of my head onto a document, sketching out the lore, like sketching out all the characters' backstory, whether it was relevant or not to the story, just so I could get to know them, getting to know the creatures, getting to know how the world itself works, like how the political system works with the world, like how everything functions, what it smells like, what sort of foliage will be growing in this part of the world because there's so much sun, and how the creatures would develop in this part of the world because there's never any sun. So that month was so valuable. I haven't gone back into that document since, but just getting it out allowed me to kind of really have that sturdy kind of outline. But another thing that I do when I am drafting is after I finish that chapter, when I'm going back through and doing my second sweep on it, I map out my senses. So sight, smell, touch, taste, hear, and I make sure that every chapter has a number of those different senses. Like I've thought about those different senses going through it, and there is a number of different moments. Yeah. So what that allows, I think, is the reader to actually put themselves into that moment and feel like they're actually there.
Yeah.
I hope anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you did it. That makes so much sense, though, because that's something that when we talk about on the podcast all the time with books, is being able to like feel like you're there, and you have to really master those senses. And I will say, I read Moon once because I knew the second time I was going to do it, it was going to be like a roll up the sleeves type of moment. And I was preparing it for getting ready before reading the second one, to be honest, where I was like, all right, I'm ready to like get into, now that I understand this world, how can I feel it more? And the best
world building comparison I can give to this, and hopefully you see it as a compliment and it's kind of fitting for today, is Star Wars, where
I love that.
I felt like Star Wars, like I don't understand the lore nearly as much as like Amy does, where I'm like, what are the Metachlorians or whatever they're called? And because there's so much lore that you don't even realize what's going on. And that's how I felt about When the Moon Hatched, was like, I understand what's happening at a very surface level, because if I were to begin to even start documenting every single thing, there's going to be such an in-depth world. And that's how I enjoy Star Wars. I live up here.
I love that.
That's where I am. But I know there's depth to this.
But I feel like that with Star Wars, like I'm very much the same. I know that there's this bigger world there, but I like to follow along the story and the relationships and the character development and the emotions. But I feel like when I'm watching Star Wars, that again, like I'm just a tiny speck in this massive world. So I completely understand that analogy and I love it. I'm very honored by it. Thank you.
Oh, good. Yeah. I mean, that's what it felt like to begin with. And now that you're saying it with the senses, or I'm like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel when I'm on like Tatooine or something.
Yeah.
That's the only planet I know. I can't.
I'm impressed you remember Tatooine.
That's it. So the themes of your book of When the Moon Hatched was incredible, especially this concept and this idea of ownership of identity. And that was probably, to us while reading it, one of the biggest themes that you have going on there, especially in Rave's personal journey. How does the theme continue to evolve in the Ballad of Falling Dragons without spoiling it for us?
Yes, this is a very hard one not to spoil on, but I will say that again, getting back to that point of, that Moon was originally the first half of book 1, we have barely touched the surface on it. So book 2 is very much the peak of that whole journey of her learning who she is, of understanding and all that sort of stuff. So all I can say without spoiling is buckle up, because it's interesting, because when I did realize I needed to cut it into 2, one of the reasons why I realized I needed to do that is because I knew that the reader needed to completely understand, have read all of the diary entries to really understand that background and their history for book 2 to hit, for the stuff that happens in book 2 and for these big revelations to actually hit, and to have time to sit with that as well, and to just really come to terms with all of that, have time to do rereads and to really, really just absorb it. So all I can say is that one of the main themes in book 2, so buckle up. I don't want to spoil it for you. I want you to be able to enjoy it to its fullest. But
I'm excited because you introduced such a great and interesting concept with this ownership of identity, right? Is it Rave's identity? Of course, this is her. Like, that's her identity, but she also doesn't identify with that anymore. So is this past person Kaan's identity? And is it fair for Kaan to be putting this onto her? And, it's her right to get to know Eowyn again, all through all of this, but at the same time, it's her right to mourn and not be that person. And so it ends up being this interesting triangle of who owns the knowledge and identity of the person between, Eowyn and Raeve are these like two separate characters in many ways.
100%. Absolutely.
And
yeah,
who gets to have the presence, the ownership of the present moment. And I thought that was like, you started off with so much where I'm just like, oh, there's going to be ripples. There's going to be repercussions.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be a lot more with book 2.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Look, all I can say is buckle up, because it is, I very much look at Moon almost like a prologue. It's a very hefty, meaty one, but we get to know these characters, we get to know their backstory, and then we get little, nugget at the end there with that final word of the book. And then that's basically like me setting the chessboard. Book 2 is like, we're playing chess now. So prepare to for some of the pawns and some of the characters to to scatter around and anyway.
I know you don't mean it in an antagonistic way, but now I feel like, oh no, I really need to gird my loins for this this book.
Commercial break, but make it literary. Amy, we were just in New York for BookCon, and did you notice that all of the New York girlies were wearing quints?
You're so right. They were stylish, street appropriate, but also business casual.
It's amazing how I was spotting some of Quince's staple pieces on the street. I can always spot one of their Mongolian cashmeres from a mile away because it's always so soft and so nice. Quince really spends time on making sure they give you the best quality clothing they can with premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra soft denim.
Their styles make getting dressed simpler. They make me feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together with tops that start at just $30. You can't beat that for work.
Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup.
Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/booktalk.
Kind of a follow-up, since we can't really talk about the ownership of identity as a theme, was there a theme that you got to explore in the Ballad of Falling Dragons that might be new or different from what we've experienced in When the Moon Hatched, that you really enjoyed while you were writing?
Yeah, so it's interesting. With Moon, I loved digging into the past, into Elowen, into her history. So I went through those diary entries, I think in about, honestly, it was a matter of days. I wrote them all so quickly. I did them all at once. I set myself aside and I went, all right, now I need to get these down. And I did it all at once because I had all that history there. I had all that lore there in my, I knew it all. I just knew that I had to somehow manage to get this into a nice, succinct, package to pass to the readers. So with Ballad, so yes, there is actually, I was able to explore other parts of history via a different method. And I struggle with being proud of myself. Like it's something I personally really struggle with. So just bear that in mind. But I loved writing these particular areas and exploring this sort of manner of exploring these particular areas. So I don't want to go into too much and spoil things, but it's via a method that is very different.
Okay.
But
okay.
it relates to a jar. So I'm just going to say that. And when you guys read the book, you'll understand what I mean. But it really, I'm sorry, that sounds so random, but just.
I love it. And I'm just like, does she go through her mason jar phase? Are there going to be fairy lights now? Like, what's the barn wedding? Like, what are we doing?
No, that's so funny. My first instinct was lyrics because ballad and singing, and the jar just threw me off. So
it's not actually, interestingly enough, this one's not to do with Raeve. So this is actually to do with Kaan. So yeah, because I mean, it's very interesting. I see them as kind of, in a way, how, Raeve has gone through these incredible griefs that, we learn a lot more about in book 2, but Kaan has been through immeasurable grief himself, but he's lived with it for the past, number of phases. So whereas Raeve is kind of, she has lived with some of it, but there has been a big chunk that she has not been living with. She's kind of, I don't want to spoil things, but I feel it's been interesting for me to have these characters kind of bounce off each other when one has kind of, again, sat with that hurt for so long and kind of learnt to build around it and to exist with it, coexist with it, and to move through all these different stages of loss. He's got this deep understanding of Raeve and of the part of the process of grief that she's moving through herself. And I think that just exploring that between them is so, it's been so beautiful for me, to be able to dig through that with them as, two characters who have feelings for each other.
Yeah. I don't think people understand what it's like when you're in different parts of grief with other people. And I'm someone who has, over the years, family members have dropped like flies before, but and other times other family members, you just grieve differently and sometimes at different pacing. And it's really hard. I think it's really hard when you kind of want someone to be at your level either way, right? Hey, let's get on this other side, or hey, I'm still here. How can you be there?
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that's so hard to really get in fantasy and to really get it into a plot. So it's really interesting that you're able to bring it into not just the plot, but with our leading couple too.
I tried. I mean, it's such a delicate subject, but I tried in my own way and from my own understanding from the grief that I've been through. So So yeah.
Good stuff. Good themes.
Yeah. Sorry, we got heavy there for a minute.
No.
I'm
We
really
can
sorry
get
about that.
so much heavier. That's our
That's our bread and butter.
our bread and butter is like, yeah, like, would you like to get more into this? Let's make everyone cry today.
Yeah, no, it is interesting because I think with book one, like it was like for me, it was really a love letter to my nana who I lost a few years ago, and she introduced me to fantasy. And after I finished writing Moon, I wrote that final word. I went and sat in the shower and I just cried for half an hour, knowing that she would never read it. And
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
I'm with you.
sorry.
I understand.
And so with writing Ballad, actually, I was going through a different sort of grief during that time, and I'd been through some personal struggles, and I think it was really there for me in ways that I could never have imagined. And I grew a lot through it. I had to look in a mirror quite a lot of times and try and drag my own pain up out of my icy lake. And yeah, it was incredible, actually. It's interesting because I thought that story was going to come out of me very, very quickly. I thought it was going to be another 6 months, right? Like Moon was, you know, and I didn't actually realize how much I was going to need that story at that time. And being able to sit with it for so long and hone it and craft it and was really an honor, because I think that had I been pushed to write it faster, to get it to the point where it's publishable faster, I wouldn't have come out of the other side of what I went through during that time personally in one piece. So it's been very hard for me to say goodbye to Ballad and my final breath through all this. Sorry, I'm getting emotional.
Thank you for telling us that. And I think that, you know, as you're talking, that spoke very much so in When the Moon Hatched. I mean, the fact that we're talking about grief, we're able to flag it this much. And several years ago, my grandma died also, and we were very, very, very close. And there are certain themes and certain human experiences that, you know, the fact that you were able to use that into your own writing is incredible. And it spoke to obviously not just me, but to so many other people. And the fact that you have a 2-year journey now that you can put of yourself into this book is only going to resonate even more with people. And I don't want to be pulling in SJM for everything, but like she did that interview and talked about how she didn't know until looking back how much of herself was in her books. And I think that it has to be that way for these novels, these stories to be everlasting and to make that kind
100%.
of impact. And, you know, this just shows that you have literally put your heart and soul into this.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I quite often get asked, like, you know, do I read reviews? Do I, you know, how do I feel with fan theories and bits and pieces? And I literally don't. I stay away from all of that completely, purposely, because not because I don't want to get hurt. Like, you know, that's part of putting your work out there. You know, you put it out there for it to get, you know, for it to get reviewed and for it to get criticized and stuff. That's part of the game. But I purposely mainly stay away because I want to keep my story unaffected by these fan theories. I want that to stay the story that has always been the one that I've wanted to tell and one I've needed to tell. So I purposely live in a bubble, and I love living in a bubble. It's fantastic. It's funny actually, because I know very little of what goes on in the world, but it's purely because I put these walls around myself and I live in my fantasy world, and I love it here. It's very untouched. So yeah. But yeah, it protects my stories. So
yeah, what I really appreciate about what you said, and I think more people need the reminder, is that you're a human being with human experiences, as are all authors. And that human experience then translates onto the page, which is why AI will never be able to write When the Moon Hatched, but also 100%. Why we should not be so quick to pass judgment on books that, in this case, Ballad of Falling Dragons took you 2 years to write. That's a lot of love, a lot of labor. And I can guarantee a lot of people are going to read it as quickly as possible. Good for them. But I think we need to have grace for the art, the artistry, and the labor that goes into producing work like this.
Yeah.
It is interesting because, I mean, sometimes, again, a book will just pour out. Like Moon poured out of me. I wrote the first draft in 6 weeks, the second draft in another 6 weeks. Then I got it published. From start to publish to it's now out and about. That was 6 months. So I mean, which is, again, like...
You were self-published initially, right?
I was, yes, correct, yeah. So that's the exception to the rule, though. You know, that is absolutely the exception to the rule. And I mean, I handed in my final draft of Ballad so late in the game Like it was my publishing house absolutely powered to get it out when they did, based on the amount of based on how late I gave it to them. But they were willing to work with me to, and also trying to keep this latest pre-order date that we had up. They were willing to give me as much time as I could possibly scrape out of their processes so that I could have what I needed and what I required to make sure that I was happy with the story. Because once you publish it, it's out there, it's done. Like you've now let go of that story. And I want for every story that I put out into the world, they might not all be perfect, but I know that that's the very best version of that story that I could tell at that time. And I know that with each story, that is what that is. And I look back at my previous stories and I see them all as a learning curve. I see them all as, that was me then, that was me then, that was me then. And I want to be able to continue to do that. I will never tune out stories just to stay relevant or to keep, I will always give every story the time that it requires for me to go, I'm ready to say goodbye to that now. I am happy with that. I am as happy as I could ever be at this moment with that story right now. I'm ready to say goodbye to it. Yeah, but it is. I mean, because there are so many stories out there now as well. Like, there is sort of this rush, to stay relevant and stuff. And it can be hard on authors because we're constantly trying to get these stories out, and we're out here doing our best. Yeah, but we also have lives as well. I've got 3 kids. It's interesting, during Ballad, my daughter, she came home with a Mother's Day drawing of the whole family, and I had me sitting in front of a computer. And that was about a year and a half into me writing it. And so I purposely took some months off writing after I handed off Ballad, and just spent time traveling with the family so that I could reconnect with my kids and they could see that Mummy doesn't just live behind a computer. Yeah. Fill that cup again. But yeah, I know I did that with Grace, knowing that I have given my everything to that story, and I've published something that I'm incredibly proud of.
We interrupt our own genius for a quick message.
When I moved in with my partner is when I realized how much effort she puts into her skincare. She spends so much time and money just on what she puts on her skin. But the one thing she doesn't invest in is our bedding.
Well, that's because you're now investing in it with Boll and Branch.
From their organic cotton sheets to their breathable pillows and comforters, Boll and Branch makes their bedding with ultra clean materials that are gentle on the skin and free from harsh chemicals.
Boll and Branch really feels like my first grown-up sheets, and you can really feel the difference with their signature sheet sets. Remember, these sheets are touching you for up to 8 hours every single night. You're going to want to have the best sheets possible. Have you noticed that the pockets of the fitted sheets are perfect for forming around the mattress?
This is the first set of sheets that I haven't had to help my partner put them on the bed because the pockets are too small. They are so easy to get on the bed.
These are honestly the first pair of sheets that I have that I don't wake up with my sheets halfway wrapped around me. They are durable, they are soft, and the longer you use them, the softer they become.
Upgrade your sleep with Boll and Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/booktalk with code BOOKTALK, BOOKTALK.
That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/BOOKTALK, and use code BOOKTALK to unlock 15% off. Exclusions apply. Struggling to find the right metabolic wellness support, even when you're doing everything right, has been one of the most frustrating things for me in my health journey.
I've tried other metabolic wellness support providers, and I often feel rejected rather than supported by the process.
That's because Brello is focused on long-term health, longevity, and performance, not quick fixes.
Brello is designed for people who want a more sustainable approach to their metabolic wellness support. Their support helps you focus on habits, education, and structure alongside provider oversight.
Getting my GLP-1 through Brello has been so easy. They make it so effortless, and they provide all the support I need through their app.
Their app is one of a kind in my book because it allows you to track progress, manage reminders, and stay on top of renewals. And if you're like me, managing the renewals is the hardest part.
Everything is managed online, making it easier to stay consistent over time, and medications are delivered to your door. They're so transparent with their pricing with one flat monthly cost. Go to BrelloHealth.com to see if you qualify and explore their GLP-1 plans, starting at $133 per month for your first 3 months. plus access to their app, community, and wellness classes. That's BRELLO health.com.
Any information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. All patients must consult with a healthcare provider prior to the prescription or dispensing of any medication, which will be done only pursuant to a valid prescription. Compounded drug products are not FDA approved, and the FDA does not evaluate their safety, effectiveness, or quality. Patients are encouraged to discuss the risks, benefits, and appropriateness of any medications, including compounded products, with their healthcare provider before use.
I never had a doubt, but hearing this even more, it feels a lot more of like, I can tell that this filled your cup. And just by hearing you talk about it, I know that it's going to fill mine in reading this. And, you know, like Amy said, a lot of people will just come and read this book in 24 hours, although it's a big book. So I don't know if a 24-hour, good luck with 24 hours, but it's, you know, as quickly as they do. And every time there's like a big book that comes out and listeners are like, oh, it was this, it was that. And it's like, was it? Or were you really excited and you read it very quickly?
Mm-hmm.
And was that the case? And if there's anything that anyone takes away from listening to this is just the time and care that you put into your craft and into your stories. And we as readers need to respect that and read it with just as much care. And that's one of those things that we're very pro authors here. Like we're very much like hey guys, how about you stop complaining and you start realizing that authors are people, are businesses, are marketers, are these creative individuals that, you know, are putting something out there. And I already know it's going to mean a lot to read this after, but like, I'm very excited. Again, we never talked to an author before we read this. So I'm excited.
I'm glad. I hope you love it.
I'm sure we will. And I look forward to savoring it because that's, I think, what we should endeavor to do.
Yeah,
it's definitely made to be savored. And I would suggest as well, absolutely go through and if you do have time, reread Moon prior because it starts off exactly where that left off. And it was, again, originally planned to be one story arc. Book 1 and 2 is one overall story arc. So I think that's probably it's obvious once you've read Ballad. So, but there are a lot of things that again feed off certain events that have happened and where you get to see that full little arcs and amongst that arc as well that come to fruition in Ballad. So
yeah, I really like rereading right before literally that book, next book type situation because you can see the callbacks, you can see the progression. I think that is this a 3-book series?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. And I think that like people kind of miss out on, especially with 3-book series where it is one giant story. So therefore, a lot of times people like some of their not complaints or just like notes that they'll have is like, well, that's how stories are, where it's like beginning, middle, end, climax, and building. And you're saying that Moon is like almost like a prologue. Well, it makes sense. That's like, you know, the first 25% of a book, right? And that's kind of getting you set up. And you have the inciting incident, and that gets you going to the next phase. So yeah, that's part of the reason why I like doing that. And I'll have, especially with like intense world building, I like going in where I'm like, I have a better understanding now.
Yeah. Now I have concept.
Amy's very good about picking things up. I am not that one. We're two different style readers. I'm just like, I'm here. And I know at the end I'm going to be there and I have to have faith that I'll get there. And I do. I definitely do. But it's versus Amy where she's like somehow has like all of the lore ingrained in her soul before even halfway. And I'm like, how do you know that?
You know, it's actually interesting too. So with the Moon, the thing that I most struggled with was actually the first, I think, 10% of the book because like because I've been again living in this world for so long in my head. So there was this like deep urge just to be like, here is the world, blah, 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 like, you know, just absolutely spew it all onto the page. But what that fails to do is like when you're just purely focusing on getting the world down, you're not allowing the reader to attach to something. And to, you know, to actually bond with the main character and to them to attach to a tether that's going to pull them through. So one of the first things I did on my second draft was went back and rewrote those first number of chapters along the same line, but just rewrote them in a way that was more that she was leading us through and that we're experiencing the world with Raeve. But I did the prologue though. The prologue that stayed as it was. So that was pretty much that's pretty much draft 1. one of what I wrote for the prologue, because that I knew that if I got that down, then that would allow the reader to at least have this overall somewhat perspective of the world. But then actually stepping into the world with Raeve, I needed us to feel like we were experiencing and tasting and feeling and smelling the world with her, so that, and I think I came to a relatively good medium, but it was hard. Like, I mean, the first version of that I had, again, I was just gushing the world onto the page, and I was like, no, this is not good. This is too much. And less flavor. Oh.
We talked about your world building, but we haven't even begun to really touch on the fact that you have incredible plot and romance, and you really managed to balance all three of these things. How did you determine which of these three was your priority during any given moment in the story, like while outlining versus drafting? To what extent did that inform your process, like for the drafting and the revision process of the Ballad of the Falling Dragons?
So because I am such a heavy planner, I mean, again, like to the point where I draft the dialogue before I even put pen to paper for the actual first proper draft of the story. I write it like a movie script, essentially. It is literally like cues like that. It's like I'll have a line of dialogue, and then I'll go, character walks over here. You know what I mean? Like it is literally like a movie script. So my very first rough sketch. But as somebody who does that, for me, I kind of have these layers of, okay, plot. All right, so my plot is I need to jump to these different plotting points. So I have that mapped out. I've gone through the story in my head, plot-wise, so many times again before I even write that first draft. In between those, I then map out the chapters. I know, all right, each chapter has to have a point. I cannot write a chapter here without it either, this is going to make their relationship grow more, or this, but it's also at the same time, I can't just do that. I also have to have something in there that's moving the plot along. So it's making sure with each chapter, when I'm planning, I mentally go through and I'm like, oh no, that if something doesn't feel like it's actually adding, if it feels as if it's kind of just in there for just to give flavor, look, I will sometimes still write the chapter, but then I will generally take it out if it is really feeling like it's fluff that doesn't need to be there. So again, this is especially true for Moon. It was a bit different for me with When the Moon, To Bleed a Crystal Bloom. Like it's very character driven. The first book is especially. So it's just a different sort of flavor of story. But with Moon, I needed it to power forward. I had so much story to tell. I'm like, okay, look, if I'm going to get this into anything under 6 books, I need every single chapter to have a point. And that is especially true for Ballad as well. Like I had so much to pack into that book that I was like, okay, all right, we've got a power here. So what I then do after that, after I've got those stepping stones to bounce from, that's when I allow myself to sink into the emotions and the romance. And I allow myself grace in that part of the process when I am writing, actually fleshing out those scenes and moving with the characters. I allow myself the grace to actually adapt and shift things, because sometimes, there might be a spicy scene that actually flares up in there and you're like, well, I wasn't expecting that. But because I'm moving with the characters and I'm actually allowing them to tell me what they need. And because I've already got those plot points all dotted out and I'm bouncing between those stepping stones, I allow myself the grace to put that there because, that kind of keeps the flow moving, I guess. And it's my way of finding a balance, but I feel like everyone has their own different ways of doing things. I am so envious of people who can just pants the story like without any planning whatsoever and have this remarkable plot arc, romance, character development, everything. I'm not that person. I plan everything.
If you had told me you pantsed, I think I would have cried. Like, I think I would have, if you told me that you're like, it's just all in my head and I pants everything, I'd be like, great. So I'm going to go in the corner and like just sob now.
No. No. Look, there are scenes, there are specific scenes. So for instance, there's a scene in Moon where Kaan makes Raeve a fruit bowl. You know that scene? Yeah, that scene. So that wasn't in my original plan. That just kind of,
just
happened.
It's for the best.
Yeah.
That's
That's what I thought too. So, I do, again, I allow myself that grace. But they were telling me that Raeve specifically was telling me that she needed a moment there to like air her frustrations. And I was like, well, here we go then.
You're like, we're following your lead, girl. That is fine with me.
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate that someone who is, it sounds like as much of a planner as I am, has found success and not pigeonholed themselves in the planning process, because I overplan every aspect of my life and every creative endeavor I do. So I'm glad it works for you. I hope it will work for me too one day. Speaking of Kaan, As we move into the Ballad of Falling Dragons and we see Kaan again, and sounds like we're going to get a lot more Kaan in this next book, how do you feel like he's changed since the end of Moon? And what changes do you hope your readers recognize in him as they enter this next phase of the story?
See, book one was very interesting in the sense that Kaan, although, Raeve, we know that Raeve can do these, she can go out there and she can work her way through an entire, group of militants and just dispose of them rapidly. He hasn't seen that. Like, he's heard about it. When he was watching the trial, he's heard about it, but he hasn't seen her in action. Like, each moment he has seen the aftermath. Like, he's seen her beaten and bloodied. He's seen her, absolutely her back whipped. He's seen the aftermath of when things haven't gone her way. So he hasn't seen those real kind of capable side of her that, yeah. So book two is very interesting in the sense that obviously there's a shift there. And obviously there's a fear for him that he has in Moon where he's like, okay, like again, like he's had to save her a number of times here. So it's like, well, I'm going to lose you again. I have lost you before. I cannot do this again. If I hadn't have saved her at that, when she got, she was being fed to the dragons, that something could have happened. If I hadn't have gotten there when, at the Sugar trial, something could have happened.
Yeah.
So in his mind, like, this is dicey. Like, he's going to lose her again. So book two is very different in the sense that he does get to see that other side of her. And it becomes very, because they are both very, very capable characters in different ways. So there is this interesting development in their relationship that I don't want to touch on too much because I don't want to ruin things for you. But where it is like, okay, like, look, I needed them to get to a certain point as well by the end of the book. And I don't want to ruin this for you, but I needed them to get to a certain point where we look up at them like they are like mum and dad. You know what I mean? That, where you look up at your mum and dad, like, you guys can do anything. Like, you guys have got me. I'm safe with you guys. You're freaking got me. That's how I've always felt in the presence of my dad and the presence of my mum. So I needed to get us to that point as readers where we look at them and we go, they're a freaking team. But getting them mentally to that stage where, especially Kaan, where he can let go of that, something's going to happen to her. Like, that was interesting. And getting her as well. Anyway, look, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a lot of shift. There's a lot of character and relationship development in this book.
Insert sponsored subplot here.
This show is sponsored by Liquid IV.
When I think of spring break, I think of Jack and I senior year Las Vegas. You know what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but what doesn't stay in Vegas is the hydration our body needs no matter what.
If there's anything that I needed from that trip, it's Liquid IV. And now that I'm older, I really need Liquid IV after going out. I drink Liquid IV's sugar-free hydration multiplier all the time. I'm not even exaggerating.
Liquid IV's hydration multiplier hydrates me better than water alone.
If you're going to Coachella or any music festival, this is the perfect thing to put in your purse because only one stick and 16 ounces of water hydrates faster than water alone. It's powered by LIV Hydroscience and an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration.
Compared to water, Liquid IV delivers longer lasting hydration and retains hydration for up to 4 hours. It's backed by a scientific advisory board with world-renowned researchers to conduct clinical research trials.
And for our vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free girlies, this is perfect for you.
It's always non-GMO and has delicious sugar-free options like mandarin orange, rainbow sherbet, my favorite, mango pineapple, and more.
Soak up unforgettable memories with on-the-go hydration from Liquid IV. Tear pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first purchase with code BookTalk at checkout.
That's 20% off your first purchase with code BookTalk, BOOKTALK, at liquidiv.com.
I'm so happy that you called it out for some readers that just didn't they're perfectly innocent readers that might have missed that. Some might be sitting right here that was like, oh my God, you're right. That is absolutely correct. Because then how does someone react? And I think that it's one of the questions we love asking authors is like, what's a thing you really hope that readers understand? Is because readers go into a book with their impression of who this person was, especially with MMCs. I feel like they are very much of like, this is my impression. So that when they act maybe differently to them, it's like, well, it's not differently. This is like character evolution. This is, evolution of everything else. And I'm really excited about that mom and dad comment, because one of the unique things about your story is that this isn't a question of these characters loving each other, right? This isn't a story about characters really falling in love. Like, maybe a little bit with Raeve, but like, we're there pretty quickly, right? So it was never about that. So how do you make it interesting? And the answer is very. You manage to make it very interesting. But I think you get to explore and play with other themes that other stories doesn't allow, just because, that's not what they're about. And that's what makes part of this love story so unique, is the fact that you get to play with these different themes. Because again, it's not about love, right? Like, they're in love. That's there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Exactly. Again, that whole theme, that's all just so heavily explored in book 2. So I don't want to give too much away and ruin it for you both, but I really cannot wait for you to read it. And I hope you love the journey as much as I have enjoyed being on
I'll
it.
be like sending you a DM, even though you won't read it, but that's okay. I'll just be like,
No, I will.
okay. I'll be like, it's me. Our face isn't in the logo. You won't remember the logo. I'll have to say who I am, but I just want to tell you, documenting. It was Stacey. Was it?
Heaps of exclamation mark emojis. Like,
Yeah.
heaps of them. And I'll be like, oh,
Wait a minute. That was her. It was Stacey McEwen. I sent her a recording of like me reacting. It was a recording I sent to Amy, and it was me reacting to like the last like 2 pages of her book. And it's just like, and I sent it to her after we interviewed her, and it was just me screaming into it. So if you just get like a random recording.
No, please. I literally live for that. That is honestly, I love nothing more than that sort of stuff. So tell me, was that the end of book 1 or book 2?
Book 1, Forbidden Alchemy.
It's yeah, it's so good, isn't it? I just love that book.
I know. It's like, we're gonna have to. Are the galleys, are the arcs already available for book 2?
I think so.
I'm not. I think some have gone out. I'm gonna. Yeah, I haven't read it yet.
We can just read. Well, let's all just reach out together and just like, send it over, please.
That's Stacey.
I know. Hello. What is the point if we cannot use whatever leverage we can?
So I've been hankering for that book. So I got it early as well, because I did I cheered for her here in the Gold Coast for an event.
Oh, nice.
So I've been hanging on that edge for so long, just like, but you guys probably the same. And it's just, I'm so desperate for that second book. So I can't wait.
It's just pure screaming, like just a, like,
yes, we'll all just scream at her.
So one of our other questions, and this is particularly with Raeve, but could be interpreted, I think, across characters. But what really resonated with us when we were reading When the Moon Hatched was the way the creators communicated with Raeve. I think some individuals, Jack and myself included, can interpret it as a reflection of someone's mental health experience or journey if they are potentially living with mental illness. And we wondered how much of Rave's experience was intended to potentially reflect a mental health journey versus, is that just our interpretation or the interpretation of readers that they've kind of attached to your book and to Raeve as a character?
Look, it's interesting because I don't like to tell people how to interpret a story. All I can do is write the story that I want to tell. But when I'm building a character, again, I try my hardest not to put any of myself into a character. But again, I can only write what I know, right? Like I'm not going to try and write something about some sort of sport that I've got no idea about. You know what I mean? I like to write what I know, because I feel like that's where my most authentic stories come out. So, but with Raeve, the one thing that her and I do have in common is that the way that she deals with her trauma, and the way that she pushes things down, and, the way that she does communicate with the creators, and the different creators that she does choose to communicate with, and the ones that she chooses to push away and not even look it in the eye because they represent certain things to her. That is a reflection of me going through processes in my certain parts of my life, and again pushing certain things away, pulling certain things closer, and again that and hand in hand with her icy lake and stuffing things down. But there's this quiet knowledge within yourself that you that you do have to face these things sometimes. And
Yeah.
sometimes you find your most power in actually facing some of these things. So yes, no, look, it wasn't purposeful, but that really was my way of, I think, working through certain things myself, and it just came out in Raeve. And I think we've all got bruises and bumps that we've accumulated over the years. And yeah, again, I don't like to tell anybody how to interpret a story, but that was what I was putting into it. Yes.
I can tell you how I felt with it. And I think that what you're putting down is kind of what I'm picking up, but also shows how universal it is too.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I'm bipolar. So there's a lot of like different feelings that you can have, right? I mean, bipolar is like highs and lows. You can have really high highs and you can have really low lows. And there was something about like wanting to ignore, trying to suppress the bad parts where it's like, I love my manic highs. My manic highs are the best times. Like, I will never feel better. Honestly, the best time of my life was when I was ovulating during a manic high, and I was like, no one can stop me. This is the best I've ever felt in my life. And I was like, I'm unstoppable. But then the lows are horrible, right? And then so I personally related to that in that way. And I know that there's so many other people who related to it in so many different ways, but that goes back into you putting very human emotions into a fantasy story, right? And that's what keeps it grounded.
Yeah, I'll never stop doing that. It's just, I can't write a story without doing that. If somebody asked me to write something that was just completely surface level, I would trip and fall and stumble, and it wouldn't come out as something that felt me, because it's just, I can't not go deep on things. So yeah.
So for our last question before we wrap up today, again, thank you so much for your time, Sarah. You've been so lovely, and thank you for going deep with us, even though I'm sure after being jet lagged, being deep is not.
I know. I feel like we took advantage of you. You're like, I haven't. You're like, I'm not on a time thing. And we're like, give us your emotions.
It's midnight for me.
Yeah.
But it's not, though. It's the morning. Oh my gosh. It's weird. No, but no, it's an honor, and I'm more than happy to do it. But sorry, continue.
What is maybe an aspect of or a piece of the Ballad of Falling Dragons that you're most proud of, that you'd love for readers to celebrate, for us to celebrate as we embark on the journey of reading this novel?
So with Ballad, for me, it has really been an exploration of familial love, and I hope that comes across. I have woven it through in many different aspects of the power of the love of a female, and how that can sort of ripple. And yeah, I really hope that's felt through the story, and I hope that is celebrated, because again, I went through a lot while writing Ballad, and I went through a lot of, I guess, digging up things myself, but again, it allowed me to, while writing it, to actually heal certain parts of me and to come to terms with certain things, and again allowed me to celebrate that, to celebrate us as women and as mothers, as daughters and as granddaughters. And so yeah, that is what I would like for readers to be able to hopefully see and celebrate.
I'm very excited about that. Talking about familial love, but like, the power of women, the power of community of women, the power of like
100%.
women within family. And I'm very excited. Extra. I was already excited. You keep getting me hyped more, but yeah, that speaks volumes. My family is I always like to say we're a matriarch, to which the men have to say, yeah. Yeah,
love that.
Yeah, they understand their place in our family.
Yeah.
Well, just in case our listeners don't know, where can they find you, whether that's your website or any social handles you have?
I am hopelessly vacant on TikTok and most things, apart from I am quite present on Instagram when, especially around a release, I will go through times when I will kind of disappear when I'm writing, just to kind of protect that bubble of space. That is the place where you'll most likely find me, is on my Instagram. I also do have a readers group as well, which is run by a very good friend of mine, and I'm in there every now and again commenting and stuff. So you can also find me sometimes in there. I sometimes do giveaways and stuff in there as well. So although I haven't done one recently, but I'm about to give away 10 hardback copies of Ballad in there. So I've got to whip that up today. So yeah, so those two places are the main places to find me.
Amazing. So thank you so much for just taking the time and just giving us so much of yourself and your own honesty and everything. This has been a really very meaningful conversation for us. I mean, for me, I'm assuming also for Amy, but for us, it's been very meaningful, and I cannot wait to read this, having spoken to you. And just thank you so much for what you do, for putting everything you do into it. And it really shows on paper. And I can't wait to buy every single fancy edition of this book.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's been an absolute honor. And yeah, I will look forward to seeing you screaming into my DMs telling.
I will. I promise you.
Look, you know where to find them if you want to send the therapy bill my way.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Julia will talk to you. That is my therapist. Yes. Great.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to this special episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com. We might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. Join us as we keep the analysis going by subscribing to our Substack to get more insights into the romantasy and romance genres. Head to the subtextsocietyjournal.substack.com. Bye.
Bye.
Amy, we were just in New York for BookCon, and did you notice that all of the New York girlies were wearing quince?
You're so right. They were stylish, street appropriate, but also business casual.
It's amazing how I was spotting some of Quince's staple pieces on the street. I can always spot one of their Mongolian cashmeres from a mile away because it's always so soft and so nice. Quince really spends time on making sure they give you the best quality clothing they can with premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra soft denim.
Their styles make getting dressed simpler. They make me feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together with tops that start at just $30. You can't beat that for work.
Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup.
Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too.
That's QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/booktalk.
When I moved in with my partner is when I realized how much effort she puts into her skincare. She spends so much time and money just on what she puts on her skin. But the one thing she doesn't invest in is our bedding.
Well, that's because you're now investing in it with Boll & Branch.
From their organic cotton sheets to their breathable pillows and comforters, Boll & Branch makes their bedding with ultra clean materials that are gentle on the skin and free from harsh chemicals.
Boll & Branch really feels like my first grown-up sheets, and you can really feel the difference with their signature sheet sets. Remember, these sheets are touching you for up to 8 hours every single night. You're going to want to have the best sheets possible. Have you noticed that the pockets of the fitted sheets are perfect for forming around the mattress?
This is the first set of sheets that I haven't had to help my partner put them on the bed because the pockets are too small. They are so easy to get on the bed.
These are honestly the first pair of sheets that I have that I don't wake up with my sheets halfway wrapped around me. They are durable, they are soft, and the longer you use them, the softer they become.
Upgrade your sleep with Boll & Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/booktalk with code BOOKTALK, BOOKTALK.
That's Boll & Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com/BOOKTALK, and use code BOOKTALK to unlock 15% off. Exclusions apply. Struggling to find the right metabolic wellness support, even when you're doing everything right, has been one of the most frustrating things for me in my health journey.
I've tried other metabolic wellness support providers, and I often feel rejected rather than supported by the process.
That's because Brello is focused on long-term health, longevity, and performance, not quick fixes.
Brello is designed for people who want a more sustainable approach to their metabolic wellness support. Their support helps you focus on habits, education, and structure alongside provider oversight.
Getting my GLP-1 through Brello has been so easy. They make it so effortless, and they provide all the support I need through their app.
Their app is one of a kind in my book because it allows you to track progress, manage reminders, and stay on top of renewals. And if you're like me, managing the renewals is the hardest part.
Everything is managed online, making it easier to stay consistent over time, and medications are delivered to your door. They're so transparent with their pricing with one flat monthly cost. Go to BrelloHealth.com to see if you qualify and explore their GLP-1 plans, starting at $133 per month for your first 3 months, plus access to their app, community, and wellness classes. That's BRELLO health.com.
Any information provided is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. It is not a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. All patients must consult with a healthcare provider prior to the prescription or dispensing of any medication, which will be done only pursuant to a valid prescription. Compounded drug products are not FDA approved, and the FDA does not evaluate their safety, effectiveness, or quality. Patients are encouraged to discuss the risks, benefits, and appropriateness of any medications, including compounded products, with their healthcare provider before use.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Security program on spreadsheets, new regulations piling up, and audit dread? It's time for Vanta. Vanta automates security and compliance, brings evidence into one place, and cuts audit prep by 82%. Less manual work, clearer visibility, faster deals, zero chaos. Call it compliance or call it compliance. Get it? Join the 15,000 companies using Vanta to prove trust. Go to vanta.com/calm.